Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Techies. This is number 5, and I'm Vance Willis.
And I'm Mark Johnson.
So, Mark, here we are again, episode number 5 of the Techies. So, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I am doing great. And here in the UK, the weather has been absolutely fantastic. I'm actually wearing a polo shirt for the first time this year. And the temperature has been sort of around 20, 21 outside today, which is what, 70-ish, just over 70 in your measurement. And it's been fantastic. But with the weekend fast approaching, of course, it's going to change and go back to seasonal norms, which is about 12 degrees, which is sort of in the upper 50s. But no, it's great, and it's fantastic to be back here. And we're going to kick off with a story about a very rich person who is wanting to spend some of his money to find some Apollo 11 engines. And this takes me back. I can remember being up for the moon landings, etc. And this is Jeff Bezos, who wants to find these big engines. I thought these engines sort of burnt up, Vance. I mean, I didn't realise they actually plummeted back to Earth. But he believes, or he and his team believe, that they have found one of these engines at something like 11,000 feet underwater.
I believe so. That's correct. Yeah, that was. That was some time ago. You know, I've paid Mr. Bezos enough money through Amazon and some of my ordering that I'm probably helping fund some of these rocket engine findings. And it's 43 years in the ocean, right? I mean, that's how long they've been. But I guess I didn't realize either that when the rocket ships took off, I guess they. A portion of these rockets detached, right? And
right, I think it was a 3-stage rocket.
3 stage,
right?
Saturn V.
Yeah, so I guess it's the rockets from the first stage, and there were 5 rockets per launch,
right?
On the bottom stage, and they did 13 launches. So a quick bit of maths would say that's 65 of them. So there are 65 of these engines that have fallen back to Earth. I suppose that some of the higher stages burn up, but that lower stage actually came off relatively quickly, didn't it?
Right,
so
it sure did.
They must just fall down.
Yeah, 19 feet tall, 18,000 pounds each one of these F1 engines. This is amazing stuff. So I think Jeff is a big NASA guy, big space guy. And, hey, I guess when you got all of his money that you can just dive to the bottom of the ocean and pull these things up. Now, I did read that let's see here, there was, they don't know what condition these things are going to be in, Mark. What do you think? 43 years on the ocean floor, they're concerned about bringing them up, and are they going to be intact? Are they going to fall apart? Are they, is it going to be something that's salvageable, or is it just the hunt for this stuff that's the fun part?
Is it just the journey? I mean, I certainly don't think they're going to reuse them, put it that way. I would suspect there'll be a lot of alloys on them, but obviously the main heat-bearing bit won't be alloy, because that would just have melted. But I think this is really interesting, and it is quite a nice thing to go hunting. But the TechCrunch article that we were looking at there is very good. It does point out a couple of things, like they're still owned by NASA,
right?
And NASA may well want them back,
right?
But it would be fascinating. I can remember going down to the Space Center in Florida, mm-hmm. and standing. They have one of those jet engines there, don't they? It is huge. It is just an incredible size, fantastic bit of engineering, and to actually get one that was used and they should find them and they should put them in museums to get everybody to see. So I thought that was a really interesting story this week.
I agree completely. So moving on from that, when you visited the studio here in North Carolina, was about the time that, interestingly enough, that the Kindle had a couple different versions recently that were released. There was a Touch and a Fire.
Right.
Now, did you order one of those, Mark?
No, the reason I didn't order it, and you know well, is I think this was back in September when we were together in the States, and you immediately ordered the Fire. I think it was, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to wait. They'll be out in the UK shortly." Well, this week they have just announced that on April the 27th, those us poor relatives in Europe get to order the Touch. And there are two things that really bug me about this, and I'll try not to get too much onto my soapbox.
All right, go right ahead.
But the first is, where is the Fire? The Fire is the device that I want. You haven't talked much about it, so I'm not sure how impressed you are with it, but we'll come to that in a minute. But the other thing is the price of it. Now, in the US, the Kindle Touch is $99.
Right.
And if you go to the front page of Amazon.co.uk, you can now pre-order it for £109.
Right.
So
I see that. 109.
£109 is roughly $170 at the moment, something like that, $165, $170. Now, we do have 20% sales tax, but even if you take the 20% sales tax off, they're charging about 20 to 25% more for the same thing in this country.
Right.
And what you're getting for that, a slightly different power supply, because the infrastructure is the same. So yet again, as a company, I think that is milking the European market.
So Mark, is this
really
109?
Annoys me.
Is this 109? Does that include VAT or no?
Yes, that will include it.
Okay, that will include it. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And then if you want the 3G, then it looks like you have to go to £169, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, and there's similar prices across Europe. So it is good that we're getting it. It's bad that it has taken so long. It's bad that there's no Fire yet, and it's really bad that they're charging those prices. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, no, I understand. That's fine. Okay, so let's briefly go to the Fire. My Fire has been charged 4 times. It sits on a bedside table beside of me. It's excellent for reading. It probably has about 15 updates that I haven't done on it yet, because to be completely honest with you, I still go to my iPad 2.
Yes.
Now we will be traveling. We'll be traveling to NAB in 3 weeks. I do plan on taking that device and see which one I pick up. It's pretty light, and it holds a charge for a very long time, just like the iPad does. But I do have some books on it that I've downloaded, and I have read some books. I just find myself using Flipboard and and checking Twitter feeds and that kind of stuff with the iPad, because of the app functionality on the iPad and being able to connect more with it. Then a lot of times I just grab for the iPad. And Mark, that kind of brings us into the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is Google adding apps to its Hangouts.
To Google Plus Hangouts. I mean, I am only a sort of a novice Google Plus Hangout user, but I have been quite impressed. And part of that is because we've just recently been playing around and found out how to get some decent quality cameras into it, rather than having to use a USB webcam,
right?
Which makes all the difference. And I clicked on some box to use some beta version of the Hangouts, and you can draw. I mean, it's great. So you can sketch. So if we were drawing some wiring diagram or something,
sure,
we can do it. But they have now taken that a step further with this sort of almost flow charting type of application, a diagram tools.
So we
And
use
that,
video. Yeah, we use video switchers to bring stuff in. But a lot of on Hangouts, I watch one on Monday evenings, and they do screen shares and share photos. This will do slide shares, diagrams, and like you said, kind of sketches. So it's kind of interesting the way that they're adding these things to Google Plus. Now, my one thing, and I'm like you, I'm not a pro at Google Plus, haven't used it a lot, but the one thing I dislike about the Google Plus Hangouts is the auto switching of the noise.
right.
If you have, I have a doorbell which we name Tank that always barks when there's a delivery guy or someone at the house, and so if you're on a Google Hangout and it does some great stuff, but have you found a way that you can turn the Google Plus Hangout auto switching feature on or off? I haven't spent enough time with it, but like you said, now that we have high def going into it, we're both excited about that and look forward to doing some more of those Google Plus Hangouts with high definition widescreen video going in. Have you found a
No,
way to do that?
I haven't. I haven't found a way, but I haven't really looked. I mean, it isn't. So what happens if you don't know Google Hangouts? If you get say 5 or 6 people joining, you get the little videos, 5 or 6 little video boxes across the bottom showing them all, and then whoever is speaking, you go up into the larger window above it. So it's actually a nice feature. It's sort of like auto switching, saving having to have a producer or somebody doing it. But as Vance says, it does sometimes just go on a random noise. I am sure that's something that they will look at. I mean, you can mute your microphone, which would stop it happening. But then, what normally happens is when you mute your microphone, you then start speaking, and nobody hears you, and you start shouting, and then you realise that you'd muted your microphone. It used to happen to me a lot on business conference calls where
Right.
you'd hand over something and say, okay, now, George, tell us what you think. And after about 10 seconds, you'd say, take it off of mute.
Right, right, and it does. It happens to us a lot. We try to. We have they call them sneeze switches or cough buttons, and sometimes we will mute things that we don't want others to hear. But you're exactly right. If the auto switching is on in Google Plus Hangouts, then that's the only thing that I find a little bit. It's supposed to be automatic, but that functionality we do manually now. So when you say something, I try to switch to you. So, but it's still interesting that they're adding these apps and these features to the Hangouts, because I do think it's things that people want to share and to use. So I think that's a good thing. I'm looking forward to to using the Google Hangouts a little more.
And we should play with it. I mean, we've talked about sort of trying to incorporate it into some of the other shows we do. And that is something that we will look at, and it has exciting possibilities. Something to keep an eye on. If you haven't tried it, go and have a look at Google Plus and Hangouts.
Right, exactly. So, did you ever go and pick up the new iPad for yourself? You got a couple of them, I think, for some family members for university. And you did some testing with the display.
Yeah.
Did you ever pick one up for yourself?
No, I haven't picked one up for myself, but I have to say that the 2 that I got for my kids, they absolutely love. I mean, I keep getting texts from them. It's a great way that I've made them talk to me, because they keep texting me to say how wonderful it is. In fact, one of them texted me this week to saying that she was in a lecture. I did think, well, why are you texting in a lecture? But anyway, she was in a lecture at university, and she said she looked around, she counted 10 people using iPads and 60 using MacBooks, either MacBook Pros or
Wow.
MacBooks, out of about 200. So probably, yeah, so getting on for 50% of the people in the lecture were using Apple products. And of course, there's probably more than that. So she was saying that they're obviously making a lot of money out of the student population, and they are very popular with students. So sorry, that was a bit of an aside, but she absolutely loves it. But the versions that we bought were Wi-Fi versions. We
okay.
didn't buy the 3G Or is it really 4G, or is it really LTE and not 4G?
So what was the
Because
deciding the factor of not getting the 3G? Because here's what I'm telling everyone that's very interesting. I'm actually seeing at restaurants now a lot of people coming into restaurants and using the iPad, just like reading a newspaper. You used to go into a cafe, a coffee shop, and they would have a rack or a bin that would have either magazines or, the daily newspaper in the morning or in the evening. Now I see people come in and they have one thin iPad under their arm. They get their coffee, they start their day off, or even do lunch or dinner having the iPad. And it's a different thing. But so everyone asks me, we help our friends out. They call us whenever they have any technical, questions or anything. And they say, which iPad should I get? Do I need to get the 64 gig? Do I need to get the 16 gig? Should I worry about the 3G? Should I just get the Wi-Fi? I don't really care about the 3G. I don't want the monthly fee. Now, I will answer that question on my side, and I'll let you respond. I tell everyone to get the 3G version, even if they're not going to do it, because there is no obligation to turn it on. However, I made the mistake, in my opinion, because the very first iPad 1, came out 30 or 45 days before the 3G version came out. If you remember correctly, on the first one, you could get the Wi-Fi version and you could get the 3G.
Yeah.
Okay, so I said, gotta have one. Stood in line, I got the Wi-Fi version, okay? Some people that I knew waited to get the 3G version that may or may not had a problem adding that 3G account to their thing. But here's my now because I bought an iPad 2. When I got that one, I did get the 3G, but it adds the GPS. Now, is the GPS a big deal? I don't know, but the price difference for $129 to me, and when I made a trip across the desert with the iPad from Las Vegas to Northern California via rental car, having the 3G with the GPS was incredible. Now, of course, I had a MiFi at the time as well, but tethering to the iPhone, and then, and burning that battery up, or the MiFi battery, you always had to have plugged in because it would never stay very long. I tell everyone to get the 3G version, and don't turn it on if you don't want that extra monthly bill, but you've got also the GPS. If you need it, you can turn it on. You can even turn it off. Month to month, turn it on 1 month, turn it off, whatever. So what's your opinion? What do you think?
Well, I actually tell them the opposite. I say, don't get the 3G version or the new 4G version, and that's for several reasons. First of all, I didn't get it for my kids because guess who pays their mobile phone bills? So that was a pretty. so if I had bought them the 4G version, I'd then also be paying for another 2 data plans, right? So that was one reason. But on a more serious note,
you didn't have to turn it on. You didn't have to turn it on. But go ahead.
Okay,
I'm still listening.
I know.
Go ahead.
But on a more serious matter, I mean, I mentioned it before. I have got the 3G on my iPad 2. I bought a prepaid SIM card for it with £10, $16 worth of data on it when it came out. I have only in the last couple of months used up all of that data. So I hardly use it at all.
Wow.
And the reason for that is we haven't got 3G here. Okay. There is no 3G in this area. If you lived in London, if you live in a big city, then I think there is a case for it.
Well, in the U.S., we have 3G almost everywhere. Not everywhere in the countryside, but almost every, even small town has. Yeah.
Well,
3G coverage.
We don't.
Okay.
We don't.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
I cannot get it here. Now, my daughters, they're at universities in big cities. They could actually get it, but they have got. There's Wi-Fi in the college buildings. A lot of cafes you go in over here have got free Wi-Fi. A lot of pubs have got free Wi-Fi. I also get free Wi-Fi hotspots. So, I tend to say don't get the 3G Now, and the reason with the iPad 3 is because it says it's got 4G. We haven't got 4G here. There's a couple of things being tested, and the 4Gs are all incompatible, which leads us to the situation where, in Australia, people have been buying it saying, I can use it with 4G, but it's incompatible with their networks. You cannot physically use it on their networks. And the same is true in a lot of European countries. And the UK and I understand France now are also looking at this because you're buying a feature that Apple know that you cannot use.
Wow.
And that is not clear in the marketing material that Apple have put out. So in Australia, Apple have said anybody who bought it thinking they could use 4G and they can't, you can have a refund.
Okay, so obviously you have to give the unit back, and you get your money back without any stocking fee. I'm assuming, because there is a restocking fee if you return it just because you say I don't like it. So they're refunding money because of, would you call this false advertising?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Yeah, it's incorrect marketing, and then you can just switch it for a Wi-Fi version if you only want the Wi-Fi, and you can pocket the $129 or whatever the difference is. So, first of all, I think it was good that Apple reacted pretty quickly to it. Mm-hmm. So, some companies would drag it out. They did react pretty quickly, but I think we'll see this in other countries. Now, I knew the state of our 4G market, but I'm sort of fairly savvy and understand what is happening here. And really what they mean by 4G is that it connects to is an LTE network, isn't it, in the US? Isn't that what it's?
That's correct. There's a couple different networks here in the US, but one of them is LTE, and that is what the new iPad uses is the LTE network, which they're calling 4G, which is not really 4G, but it's faster than 3G. So if it's faster than 3G, then let's just call it 4G instead of 3.2G.
Yeah, and isn't that just so confusing?
It is very confusing. Very, very, very confusing.
So I think we might see some other countries now having the same thing. I think Apple will react the same way, because you have to take the high ground when you have a brand like Apple. You can't fight it. And I think they have been, not. They haven't deliberately, I think, been misleading in their advertising, but perhaps they should have made it clearer.
So if you bought the iPad 2 or the new iPad, and you were concerned about losing it, what could you do? Are you someone that misplaces stuff, Mark, or do you pretty much know where your iPhone and your keys are at all times?
I pretty much do. I'm not somebody who loses things.
And see, I'm the same way.
But there are some people who do. I mean, it does happen occasionally. I'm not saying that it doesn't. Talking of which, when I stayed with you, we were looking for a key for a particular vehicle you had.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I've lost in years, and I still haven't found that stupid thing. But I haven't looked really hard for it. But I keep telling my wife all of the time, I have to find the key, and it's one of those things that you put away for safekeeping, because actually I have two of them, and they're very important keys because it's a pretty expensive device, and I put it away, and I've known for years where these keys are, and I couldn't. I still have not found them.
So wouldn't it be good if you could, important things like that, you could attach something to?
So I was looking this week, and once I find the keys for this thing, I would love to have this thing called a beacon. Beacon. So
that's how you pronounce it, BIKN.
Yes,
beacon.
It's beacon. It's like BEACON, like I guess, but it's BIKN, and this device is a two-part. It's two parts. One of them is the case that you see going around the iPhone, and it has an internal battery in the bottom and a 30-pin dock connector that plugs in with a micro USB down here at the bottom. And you can buy multiple receivers, if you will, that looks like this one over on the side here. So the idea is that you have an app inside of the iPhone, and you have this case that slides over it that has its own battery, so it doesn't take anything away from the iPhone. Even if the iPhone is off or dead, battery's dead, then this this case around the iPhone and this beacon will communicate. It will actually talk back and
Right.
forth. So there's really some neat things. I got kind of intrigued by a device called, I think it's Zoom. I believe it's XOOM, that came out a few years ago, and it did something similar. But this one, there it is, or ZOM, I guess it is. I'm sorry, I called it Zoom, but it's actually ZOM. And it would do a similar thing. You would put your keys around the device, and if you left the house with your keys but forgot your phone, this device would alert you that you were leaving the house without your phone, turn around and go back. So it was kind of a tether that would do that, made by ZOM, and it was promoted nationally here,
Right.
it looked like a pretty decent thing. This takes it one step further, where you can buy multiple receiving units and attach them to all kinds of things. So people could actually set up perimeters with this receiving unit. You could put it on a dog's collar, and if you had a dog that was an active dog and liked to jump the fence or run away or something, or you were at a shopping mall with your kids, you could have it on a little springy band, or attached to their belt or something. And if they wandered too far away from you, then the application on the iPhone would actually say, hey, and you can set that perimeter of range in any
Wow, that's
distance that you
interesting.
want. So not only does it say, okay, you're leaving the house, and your phone and your keys are not mated together, because most people need their phone when they get in their car. How many times have people driven away from their house and say, oh, I forgot my phone, but obviously they've got their keys because they need it to start up, or they left a restaurant, they left their phone or left their keys. Then this kind of mates those two things together. But more interestingly, it allows you to set a perimeter, and that perimeter is adjustable for the devices, and you can buy multiple devices, and each device, each receiver, have its own perimeter. So if you give more leniency to your animal to roam a farm around you, that could have a larger range of alert or beeping or beacon than, say, your child that you would want at a department store to stay close by you. They be in the toy section while you're in the clothing section or the
Right.
sporting goods
Right.
section looking for fly rods, or whatever you're doing. So I think this is really neat. The prices on this, is not looking very, very bad to begin with. So it looks like it's
And
about
does it say what sort of range has it got? I mean, what's the technology? Is it just a couple of 100 feet, or
yeah,
is it
I don't think it's
Bluetooth? Or,
miles. It actually, here's what it says right here. Let's take a look at this right here. So if it's set to far, it can be as long as 100 feet inside and 500 feet outside. So it's not miles.
yeah.
I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's if it's Bluetooth. Obviously, it's not Bluetooth in that distance.
Is it Bluetooth or or be Wi-Fi maybe of
Must
some
be
sort? Well,
Wi-Fi. Yeah, it must be Wi-Fi.
or it could be some limited radio technology. But
Right.
that's interesting. So can you also do the simple things like say where is it? So you can you can get it to beep or something if you've lost your keys.
Right. I believe you can do all of those things, and it's customizable via the via the software panel, and you can actually put logos on your on each one of these
On
things
your
now.
devices.
Yeah,
So
on your
so you can.
devices. So we'll just see that you've got a couple of phones here. You've got the band that goes around the outside that has the battery. Um,
Do they support more multiple phones then? Is it just
I
iPhone
believe
or
it's
is
just
it?
iPhone at this point. I believe so. But you can see that the battery unit is down here, plugs into the 30-pin connector. It has its own charging port down here at the base,
Which is micro USB, which is good.
which is micro. That's right. So then you can hit the plus button here, and then you reset. So it's almost like a pairing of a Bluetooth.
Right.
And then it says, okay, well, we found it, success, and we get a beep, and it tells us. Well, then you can show an icon and say, is this a dog or a key or a camera or a person, a child, or a briefcase? And then you can find it, leash it, or page it. So that way,
All
if you
right.
want to page where your keys are, you can just hit the keys, and then all of a sudden it says, oh, we're getting warmer, 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 warmer. We're almost there. And then you get close to that device, and then you go down and hit the page button, and the keys start beeping. So beep, 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 and then your keys start beeping. Your child, you say, where is my child? Here's all the different colors down here. So you can have multiple iPhones for, husband, wife, and kids. And it is very customizable from what I've seen. The case does have its own battery life, and each device has a micro USB that charges up the receiver and the case by just plugging it in to the USB on the computer, wall plug or car adapter.
That does look pretty. That is a very interesting product. That really is.
So yeah, it caught my eye, and I said, that's pretty neat device. And it's the starter kit. I think it's $129 US to start off with. I think you get the iPhone case with the battery built in. Now, what I didn't find out is if that battery, I don't think it actually acts as a Mophie case and charges your phone. I believe the mentality is, let's keep this battery separate for doing its proprietary use to talk to the receivers, and let's don't take down the iPhone battery. But on the flip side, let's also don't charge it, because if you lost charge on this accessory, then you couldn't find your devices, and if your phone went dead, it's just I think they keep it separate is what I'm getting at. So anyway, I just thought that was pretty good.
That is good. That's a device to look out for. Now, we're going to finish up, I think, for this episode on a story that I saw this morning on BBC News. And this was announced a while ago, but I think it's just opened, in that Google have opened a campus in the UK where they are giving space to tech startups. This is part of London, which is becoming known as sort of as Tech City, where there are lots and lots of technology startups, and the government have said they want the UK to be leading the world in technology, etc., as any government, of course, always says. So there was this news item, and they showed around. It was very good. It's very typical. Lots of bean bags, lots of things to do. But if you show that picture there, where the reporter's in green, and just behind her is a tree that's planted in a big container, and around it are some plants, and they're described as being tweeting plants, because what happens, they've got them wired up to sensors, and whenever the plants need watering, you just send a tweet, and so people can go and water them. So there's another example of how you can use Twitter to keep your plants or water. So it was really interesting. It was interesting because of that, but it was also interesting that Google are investing money in several places, including in the UK and London, to encourage tech startups. And that can only be a good thing.
I agree completely. I think that's pretty neat. We have tweeting plants when they need water. That's great. So maybe babies will tweet when they're hungry, and other things. It's amazing. There are some devices that I saw on Kickstarter you may have seen in the last 3 weeks that called Ninja Blocks. I don't know if you've seen those or not, but this is a device, Mark, that's similar to this. It actually is an open source system that you can buy, and you can configure these Ninja Blocks to do exactly what this article is talking about. So if you have a delivery person and you don't have a tank to alert you when the delivery person comes, when they press your doorbell button on your house, or any button or any function, you could even set it up to a camera that would sense motion. Then this device called a Ninja Block would actually tweet to you, text you, or email you to say you have a delivery. Now, there are Ninja Block modules, and this was one of the things that we were going to talk about on an upcoming show, but this kind of blends right into it, that you can buy these modules very similar to the modules we saw a second ago and expand your system. There are cameras that are all-inclusive, that you can actually mount, will connect via Wi-Fi, and when that delivery person or someone enters your front door, then you will get a notification. So Ninja Blocks is on the Kickstarter website now, looking for funding, and it looks to be really neat for people
Wow.
liking to to do things like that. But you can do things like if you turn a lamp on, then it does something. It's kind of like an if-then statement from Basic, that if this item
This
happens,
happens, right?
then this item happens, and they're very configurable. But the cool thing is that they communicate via the internet. So it would almost be like if you had one there in England and someone pressed the button, then it could make something happen here in my studio. I mean, that because you're using the internet in real time. Ninja Blocks, really cool thing, but we'll probably spend a whole episode of the Techies on Ninja Blocks. So do
Right.
a little bit of research on that.
That is really good. It reminded me, I've just been looking for something. As an old colleague of mine, a guy called Andy Stanford Clark, STANFORD hyphen Clark, CLARK. You've heard of TED and TED Talks. Well,
Yes.
Andy did a TED Talk recently at, I think it was TEDx Warwick. And he talks about some of the things he has done with tweeting, and he has some good stories to tell. So I could encourage anybody to look at the video. Go and do a search at TED for Andy Stanford Clark, and there are some quite interesting things that he has done there. Well, are we up to our 30 minutes yet?
We actually are just over our 30 minutes, so we're going to wrap up this week. We have a lot more stuff to go over. We're trying to keep this down to short and clean and neat. And so each week we will try to keep it right around 30 minutes. We've gone over just a little bit today. We're about 36 minutes in, but hopefully everyone will tune back in next week. We should be on next week. Mark, I think you will be traveling some next week. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll be traveling a little bit, but I am hoping through the magic of the internet to still join you. I wouldn't miss out on this, and we'll look forward to it. So, yeah, we should be here next week.
Excellent. Okay, well, so that concludes this episode, number 5 of the Techies, and hope everyone will join us next week for number 6 for more really cool stuff. So you guys have a good one, and we'll see you soon.